In this video, I'm going to show you how to make jump up like HEDEX. Before we get into it, if you could just smash that like button, it'd be really appreciated. I've categorized HEDEX music into 4 categories. The first is a really distinctive intro sound and melody. The second is a really energetic build-up that just flows really nicely. The third is a really memorable vocal line, and the fourth is crazy sound design on the drop. Now, some of you will be pleased to hear that I've actually released this tune. It's called D&B is Massive, and it's available on Spotify. I'll leave a link down below. Feel free to add it to your playlists. Let's start with the drums. So the drums are really simple. I'm just using the samples from my Chaos collection. What you want to do is grab 2 bars and then put a kick drum every other beat like this. And then what we're going to do is grab the second kick and move it half a beat across like that, and do the same with the 4th kick as well. And that gets you that drum and bass pattern. Next, we've got a clap, and we're just going to put this in every 2nd beat and every 4th beat. And then we should have something that sounds like this. Now with your drum samples, you want to get them sounding tight and snappy. So shorter sounds are normally better with smaller tails, and then you can add like compression and distortion as well to some of the elements. Just don't go overboard. Just get it to sound as crisp as possible without going crazy. Next, we want to put a hi-hat in, and we're going to put this on the 3rd beat, so halfway between each bar, just like that. And then we've got this drum loop that sounds like this, and all together the drums sound like this. Now, if you watch a lot of my tutorials, you'll notice that these drums are very similar to the drums on a previous tutorial. And that's because often, if I've made some really good drums, I'll use them in quite a lot of tracks, because it just saves time, and it means I can just get into that workflow state of producing and not have to worry about creating new drums every time. I can focus on the other bits that make the tune. And I recommend trying this if you don't already. It's a really great tip. So once that's made, you just want to duplicate these drums for 16 bars like this. And then at the end of 8 bars, if you want, you can do some sort of transition. And then at the end of the 16 bars, you can do a transition as well. And in this case, I've only done transitions at the end of the 16 bars. And they sound something like this, with a little snare roll in as well. So to get that crazy build-up that's 16 bars long, you want to basically just copy the same drums across for the first 8 bars, like this. And then we've got this filter on here. And what this filter does, it's a love filter. It just brings in the cutoff here. So the first 8 bars are the same, and then the second 8 bars, we just change the kick to this sort of pattern here, which you can copy. So we've added a new one in here, a new one here, a new one here, a new one here, and then we go into like more of a build-up style. We're just going like that. And then I've also added in a new snare here, and this is also being filtered in. This filter is on the drum bus, so it's filtering in all the drums. And this is just a snare that's hitting very frequently, every other step. So 4 times in 1 beat. And that's just duplicated throughout right up until the end here, where all the drums stop. And then we just got 1 snare here. Now let's look at the bass. So for this track, what I did was I picked the key of D minor, and I actually started with the drop first, because I already had these drums from a previous tune, and I was just trying out new drops by using sample packs, serum presets, and splice. So I decided to go for a D minor because the tune I made before, I think it was in F minor, so I wanted to change it up a bit. And what I did was I just looked through for really cool sounding sounds on splice, and I found this sound, which was in a longer sample of loads of other sounds. So I chopped this sound out and pitched it down into D, and it got that. And then what I did for this sound here, I made it a unique sound, and then I clicked this reverse button here to give this cool sounding reverse sound, just so it didn't sound too empty. And that's how I got this. And then this just goes down in pitch. So it goes D, D, and then C sharp. And then for the post-processing, all I've done is added a trash 2 just to get more grit out of it. On the multiband setting, you can see the settings here. On retro, cheap digital, and on heavy, cracked actress there. And you can see I've changed it a little bit as well. And then I've just got a Pro Q taking out any of the low end here, and then sidechain. And that's because we've got this fat sub bass underneath that's just sustained throughout. So it starts on a D, then goes down to a C sharp here, and it does this. That's ridiculously fat, and it looks something like this. And it's got sidechain on as well. And the sub, it just looks something like this, with this LFO bin 3 drawn on here. And there's a bit of compression on as well. And you can see the settings here. So I had this, and then I had a little gap here, and I was thinking, I need to get this wobble in, but I want it to sound unique. So I took a wobble I already had in a previous tune, and I just messed about with it on Serum until I was happy with the sound. So this is what it looks like. And again, this is from the Chaos Collection sample pack, but then just tweaked a lot. And it's got LFO 1 here on the sub, on the noise, and on the level, and on this cutoff here. And then we've just got compression on multiband and an EQ, boosting a little bit of the mid to highs. We've got some FM work here on 74%, and then basic shapes on -2, and the wavetable position round at 6, and then a basic MG on +3, and then that +1 there just brings it back into key because this detunes it slightly. So that just makes sure I'm playing the right note. And you can see here it's playing a D. So that definitely is a D because I've re-keyed it back in by doing a +1. And then I wanted it to like down pitch as well. So I added this LFO 3 here on envelope mode here on a bar. Here you can see LFO 3. And then I put it on number 1 and put the master tune on here. And that just means it goes down in pitch gradually. And then I put the octave up 3 because I thought that sounded best. It sounded most gritty and most like HEDEX-y style. So it sounds like this. The other option was to go a bit lower, so an octave lower. But I thought this just sounded better and sort of punched through the mix a bit more as well. And in terms of post-processing, I just put an OTT on it and then EQ'd out some of the lows and boosted this range here. I felt it punched through the mix more when it was boosted around this end. And then I found this sample here, this Teddy Killers sample off Splice that sounds like this. And then I duplicated this sound here, get this sound. Put this down a little bit, 7 semitones. And then I've got this filter on it as well, just to get it to sound different throughout. So there's different style filter on here, just to keep it interesting. And if you want to look at the structure more for this, what we can do is highlight this section. So we've got 8 bars here, and each section can be categorized. So we've got section A here, section B here, section A here, and section C here. So this section and this section are identical, as you can see, apart from like maybe some different effects down below. And then this section and this section are varied. So you've got this, and then this section. So you've got A, B, A, C. And then we can just duplicate this here like that. And then what we've done later on is duplicate it again, but then we've gone lower in pitch. So you can hear this. So we've just kept in the key of D minor, but then gone lower in semitones. So for example, this one, we've gone down 3 semitones from D. And then the wobble has gone an octave down as well. And then for this final bar, it goes back to the original sound. And then we do like an exit into the breakdown. Like that. So everything I found on Splice, I changed into D minor, and then it worked perfectly. And then I EQ'd all the sub sounds out of the basses, and then just put this fat sub below, as you can see here, consistently throughout, just to give the drop even more heavy weight. So in terms of effects in the drop, you just need to find these one-shot samples that sound cool, and then fit them in around your basses. So when the basses go quiet, this is a perfect chance to put stuff in. So we've got like a breath here, we've got like a Star Wars blast here, we've got a little percussion laser here, and we've got and effects here as well. So let me play the basses and the effects so you can hear how they work together. So you see, this was at the end of the wobble section and it sounded cool below it. And then this was in the gap. And then these kind of complement each other when the wobble's going and just gives it that extra groove and bounce. So you try and find where the gaps are, fill them in, and also try and add some groove and bounce to the track. So those are your two main goals with the effects. And if they're not doing that, don't add them in, because you can often go a bit overboard and it doesn't sound good. So now we've looked at the drums and the bass, let's look at the intro. So the intro is just focused on creating as much depth as possible and then creating a really memorable melody in the intro. And for that, I've used a horn sample, which has just got a load of EQ, distortion, and reverb on. And then some stereo monoing. I didn't want to go straight into a build-up, so I created this little ambient intro beforehand. And this is just an ambience off splice, pitched down to D minor. And then I found this wartime sort of foghorn, disgusting sound, pitched down to D as well. And then found this crazy bass brass thing as well, just to give it a bit more. And then we've got a little bit of automation going on here, and then we've just put white noise underneath and some rain and some sweeps. This is what it sounds like. And then this comes in. And then we go straight into the build-up. And this is just the build-up elements, and then we've got this horn playing as well here. So this is on C, but it's actually playing a D. So just keep that in mind. And then for the rest of the horn, we just did this and slowly cut it out. Because the vocal comes in here and we want to be able to hear it as clear as possible without this getting in the way. So in the build-up, I added in a really cool riser that I found on Splice. And then I found this police siren that I gradually filtered in as well. And then I had to chop it up a bit just so it would sound in time. It sounds like that. So on top of that, we have a vocal for 4 bars before the drop, and this sounds like this.
Civil defense officials in London, and we are just finding this out now, have told newsmen that German base is massive.
And then it goes into the drop. Now this vocal is saying some pretty cool stuff. It's saying the news report, drum and bass is massive. And I actually created this with a sample and by using AI. Now, if you haven't already watched that video, I'll leave a link here and in the description so you can check it out. Highly recommend watching that. It's crazy what you can do with AI already, and it's only going to get more crazy. And that is pretty much the whole tune. If you have any questions, leave them below and I'll answer them for you, no problem. And then the only other thing is we've added some variation in the second drop. So we've just added another note here, just to keep it interesting. And then for the vocal here, we like down pitched it for this bit.
Civil defense officials in London, and we are just finding this out now, have told newsmen that German base is massive.
So we just put it down pitch here. And then I just went a bit crazy and experimented with different sounds for the second drop and ended up with something like this. I thought, why not make this bass more frequent, and why not get the horn from the build-up into it as well? And then I did experiment with getting the horn back into the intro, but I think the wobble bass sounded better. So you just got to be able to know when to make the right call with these kind of things, and that'll get better the more you produce. Let's listen to the final product of this track. And remember, it's out on Spotify as well, so please feel free to add it to your playlist. It's called D&B is Massive. hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to smash that like button and make sure to check out Chaos Collection. It's my latest sample pack with loads and loads of samples in it that can make you tracks like this. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.